Hello and welcome to Infra, and we are in a conversation with Sanjiva De Silva. He's a counselor, energy and resources at the Australian government. Very warm welcome to you on our platform, Sanjiva. First of all,
thank you, Sundar. Very, very good to be speaking to you.
Let me begin this conversation by trying to understand from you. India and Australia have had a very enriching kind of a partnership, and they work together when it comes to areas like energy and natural resources. I want to understand from you, how do you place, this entire industry, this entire sector within the larger landscape of the bilateral partnership that we have? What is the size? What are the key highlights of this trade? For example, things like that. If you can share some of that insight with us.
Certainly. I guess the way to break it up is our present, current trade, and then where we are looking forward. And, where the government is really, and indeed the reason that I'm in India, in terms of where we are seeing the growth and the development of that relationship. When we look at the present relationship in the energy and resources space, coking coal, of course, dominates. More than 70% of our merchandise trade with India is in coking coal. Australia is a hugely important partner to India in that relation. More than 50% of India's imports of coking coal come from Australia. So, when senior Indian government people want to speak to us, I think in the back of their minds is always that core basis of the relationship, which, to a large degree feeds the Indian, steel sector, which is such a strategic sector in India, responsible for so much employment and so much of the economic development of India. So coking coal is kind of the basis. We have other, of course, commodities like gold and other things which form more minor parts of it, but coking coal dominates. In terms of where we are heading into the future, it's really our critical minerals relationship that is going to be the basis of our resources engagement. The Australian and Indian governments have signed a critical minerals partnership that is aimed primarily at facilitating the Indian government in securing investments and interests offtake into Australian lithium and cobalt assets. Australia is the world's largest exporter of lithium. We export more than half the world's lithium, but a large proportion of that, 97% of that lithium, goes to China to be processed. So there are wins on both sides in terms of securing greater engagement of India in Australia's critical minerals market. We want to see diversified supply chains for batteries and other products, and we see India as a huge market and destination for the end users as well as the manufacturing of those products. So one of the areas that I have been focused on since coming is really facilitating that investment. And you would know, I think you and I have discussed the Kabil Critical Minerals Office collaboration, which is looking to do due diligence on a number of projects in the Australian ecosystem and really providing, facilitation to the Indian government in terms of its entry into that field. Fingers crossed, I think there are a couple of competitive processes which the Kabil Consortium, it's now broader than just Kabil, a couple of commercial competitive processes that they're in, that we have a lot of faith that something will come out of that. If there is a significant investment made by the Indian side into Australian lithium, for example, I think that will be a real game changer, not just for the Australia-India partnership, but for our like-minded partners across the world looking for diversified battery supply chains. I think Australia and India can play a role not just for our own energy transitions, but also for the manufacturing and resilience and diversity security of these key renewable energy supply chains.
Okay. Yeah.
That's on the resources side. I can speak a little bit more as well about the work we're doing
Yeah.
on renewables more broadly.
Yeah. In fact, that's what I wanted to also understand from you. Apart from critical minerals, I know that recently the two sides signed this renewable energy partnership, right, 2 months back, which talked about some very important areas like solar PV or green hydrogen or even energy storage. Can you give us a sense of what's actually expected there? What is being planned, and where is the partnership headed as far as these crucial areas are concerned?
Fantastic. Yeah. So you're referring to Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Albanese in the
Yeah,
margins of the G20 meeting in Rio de Janeiro,
yeah,
launched this
Brazil.
renewable energy partnership, which
Yeah,
has been a mainstay of my role, developing the ideas with the Indian system since I arrived here 3 years ago. The core request of the Indian side was that that cannot be just a piece of paper. It had to be underpinned by really practical work that we were doing under it. And so that is what we've done for the last 2 years. We've been developing those practical areas of cooperation, and then it's now been crystallized in a partnership endorsed by the highest levels of both of our governments. So really creating a bridge between the two countries that will see these critical areas develop. I'll go into a little bit of detail on a couple of those. The
okay.
first is on the solar PV value chain and also rooftop solar. So as you know, Prime Minister Modi announced last year the 10 million solar rooftops initiative,
Yeah,
Surya Ghar.
yeah,
That initiative is a crucial a touch point because Australia is the largest per capita deployer of rooftop solar in the world. So we
okay,
have
okay,
1/3 of households in Australia are covered by rooftop solar. Now, our advice to our leadership was that it's unlikely that Australian firms are going to want or be particularly interested in competing in the mass market of rolling out these solar rooftops in India.
okay,
But there are more systemic issues that arise as you try to deploy rooftop solar at such a large volume.
okay,
There are three key areas that we identified that Australia can bring expertise to India to
okay,
support India's rollout, but also to create commercial opportunities to benefit both sides. The first is in training and accreditation. Trying to roll out this many solar rooftops, you will have a lot of electricians on a lot of roofs, and that process needs to be done safely. It needs to be done securely, or you can risk in fact undermining public, sort of support for programs like this if people are injuring themselves trying to install the solar panels. So one of the areas that we are focusing on is training and accreditation. We will be doing a couple of things in that rooftop space. Firstly, we are developing a course stack that will take existing course modules and training modules in the Indian system, looking at how they compare to Australian course modules, lifting them up to a standard which will be equivalent to Australian standards, and then secondly, rolling out a series of rooftop solar training academies where this training will be delivered to Indian students. We plan in the first tranche to be training 2,000 solar technicians and solar helpers. There will be special provisions made at these training centres for women and young people. For example, the provision of childcare, transport to and from the training centres to ensure high levels of buy-in from Indian rural, remote women and young people to increase the access. But most importantly, the people trained will come through with qualifications that are equivalent to Australia, and that will benefit both countries. They will be
okay.
high degrees of training and accreditation here on the Indian side, which will give options to those trainees to take their talents to Australia, but also a future.
This is training. This is training for vendors also, or only the student community and things like that.
In the first instance, we're focused on training solar technicians and solar helpers.
Okay.
So These are entry-level kind of people. We also, under the partnership, are developing other training modules which will take executives from distribution companies, central governments, as well as state government officials, take them to Australia for programs where they will be trained in and see the technologies and services on offer in Australia. So there's going to be an exchange of executive personnel as well. But the training centre that I referred to, that is something that will be aimed at solar technicians and solar helpers across India. The first one will be in Gujarat, but we're looking at other options in Tamil Nadu and elsewhere in the country.
Okay, so training and accreditation is one part of it. Yeah, there are two other things that you're talking about.
Yes. So the second component in the rooftop solar space that we're bringing is digital enabling and energy storage technologies from Australia. So the first delegation will come in March. We are going to be taking that delegation to Delhi as well as to Gujarat. And as part of the kind of partnership we're developing with the government of Gujarat, we are hoping that a number of those companies will be able to demonstrate their technologies in that market. For example, peer-to-peer trading, grid simulation technologies and training people to use those cutting-edge grid simulation technologies. Also deploying technologies like microgrids and other things which Australia has been doing for several years. So that second pillar is around digital enabling technologies and infrastructure. The final one is looking at ways to connect Australian investors, institutional investors, with the rooftop solar opportunity in India, and we have been talking to the Asian Development Bank, among others, in terms of doing that. So that's all just in one small pillar of the partnership around rooftop solar.
Okay.
But we are doing other things as well, looking at two-way investment into battery supply chains, as I mentioned before, but also solar supply chains. Australia is one of the world's best silicon and polysilicon assets anywhere in the world. And currently, you would know that more than 80% of the world's polysilicon is produced in China. 40% of that in a single province of China, and that production has faced a number of problems with the United States blocking it on the basis of the use of forced labor. But it's also very, very energy intensive, carbon intensive production. So Australia is investigating a number of possibilities of producing renewable polysilicon in Australia. We want India to be a flagship partner with us in terms of bringing Indian industry that have committed under the PLI scheme, for example, and need alternative sources of polysilicon to partner with Australia to bring that to India. Okay. That's a second thing.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that, but we are doing other things as well on technology, solar and renewable technology, connecting Australian research expertise with Indian manufacturing scale and the like. So it's a very large and comprehensive partnership.
Okay. Which are the other, within the mining industry, within the mining sector, which are the other key areas of investment opportunities that you see existing for the Australian mining companies in India? If you can throw some light on that.
If I can be frank, I mean, the feedback I get from the Australian mining industry at present is that they're still a little cautious of coming in to do greenfields projects in India. I think Indian government is passing through a suite of reforms, as you know, over the last couple of years, reforming the auctioning process, the exploration process, the exploitation process for resources in this country. But I think the Australian mining industry, the biggest players are watching that closely. I don't think they're yet ready to jump in. Okay. I think there'll be a time for that, and certainly they are looking at the Indian system. Okay. However, where I see the biggest potential is in mining equipment technology services. What we call METS. Australia is a leader in sustainability, sustainable practices. We're a leader in robotics and use of automation in the mining sector. We have cutting edge technologies for offshore drilling and other mining related services. I think that's where the partnership is going to develop first. And I encourage sort of Indian players that have interests and understand the Indian market well and are looking to start mining operations here to look for partnership with Australian firms. And I can tell you that chairmen of some of the biggest public sector companies in India are seeking just that kind of partnership, and we are trying to facilitate that for them. So I think the relationship will begin in the mining equipment and technology services area, but then go broader. I'm not sure whether in the near term we will have major Australian miners coming in to do their own mining here, but they will want to partner with Indian firms and then come that way.
Okay. Sanjiva, one more thing that I wanted to ask you is, what are if you could throw some light on some of the recent initiatives that Australia has taken to make its mining more environment friendly. And I'm asking this because, it's a country which is seen as a mining hub, right? And it's important for the larger global mining landscape in many, many ways, right? So what is the latest that is happening there in terms of, on the areas of sustainability and sustainable mining operations and making them more environment friendly?
So, I mean, Australia, I think the benefit that we have is that we have a long history of being at the cutting edge of these initiatives. Australia already has very, very high standards for sustainability in country. So our miners, I think it's part of their ordinary business operations that, we have the highest environmental standards, the highest standards in terms of, consultation and working with Indigenous and local communities in mining sector. So those standards are already in place and have been for many years. I think if anything, what business, especially investors from countries like India often ask is, or on the other side of it, around, how can we make approval processes more expedient, push through significant projects quickly. I think that's more the concern entering the Australian ecosystem now at present than on the standard of our sustainable practices. Still, we have indicated a number of different sustainability initiatives. At COP29, the UNFCCC climate conference that just finished in Baku last year, Australia signed up to the call for action for no new coal mines. So that's one that we are incorporating into our system and gradually taking back the build on coal mining. I'll highlight a couple of other things. Geoscience Australia, which is our flagship, geosciences agency, have published a map of mine waste. So that is, they have documented more than 1,000 sites of historic mining in Australia. Excuse me, I've got a telephone call coming. I'll just.
Oh, okay, no issues.
So they've documented more than 1,000 instances of historic mining in Australia, done chemical analyses of. Sorry, should I start that answer again so that you can?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Or you can start again if you want.
Yeah. So one of the key sustainability initiatives that I'll explain is around mine waste and tailing. I think this is an industry where, as our ability to process and exploit resources improves, we can revisit historic tailings from the past and extract valuable economic resource from that tailing. And as we do that, of course, we reduce the need for fresh mining and we extract the most from the mining that's already happened. Australia's Geoscience Australia has released a map available freely on its website, which gives detailed chemical analyses of 1,000 more than 1,000 mine sites going back 150 years in Australia, which are open to investors to look at and exploit these tailings from historic gold mines, historic ore mines of all kinds. And Geoscience Australia provides extensive data and analysis, which would allow mining companies to understand how they can extract more value from those resources. So that's a key sustainable and new initiative. Our lithium hydroxide processing capability is increasing. The US firm Albemarle has set up a world-class facility in WA, exploiting the spodumene that it is extracting from the world's largest lithium mine at Greenbushes. That mine is implementing world-class standards for circularity and the reuse of its reuse of the chemicals that are being used in the processing facility. Finally, if people are interested in sustainability in Australia, I'll direct you to a compendium that Austrade has created. That's our Trade Commission, the Australian Trade Commission. That goes through various initiatives that the Australian government is implementing to improve the sustainability practices of its mining sector, including the zero carbon mine strategy, the smart water strategy, because of course the use of water in mining is a major concern in Australia.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjiva. Thanks for sharing all that information. It's a lot of valuable information for us. Finally, if I can also ask you, you're also going to be one of the key speakers at the ET Infra Group Global Metals Mining Meet that we're going to have recently. So two things, what is it that, very quickly, if you can share with us, what is it that makes you excited about that opportunity to interact, that speaking opportunity there? And also, what would be your, what do you think would be your takeaway, as a key takeaway from there? What do you hope in terms of takeaway?
The excitement, I think my passion for work comes from feeling that I'm a part of a global transition to a lower emission global economy. And I think Australia and India have led the world in other forums in terms of bringing North and South together and demonstrating how we can practically do things that cut across these deep divisions in the global community to get towards results. We did that working together in the WTO on agriculture subsidies. We've done it on various fronts together. I think Australia and India can come together to show how this renewable energy partnership can really be a beacon of how the next phase of climate action really comes together, especially when we're having, such quite difficult negotiations at the global level on climate. At that very same time as those difficult negotiations were happening last year, of course, the Australian and Indian Prime Ministers were signing this very high ambition bilateral renewable energy partnership. So as our Minister for Resources often says, the road to net zero comes through the mining sector. So I think reflecting that, I think that's what really gives me inspiration, that really why I'm looking forward to coming to Kolkata and seeing you, as well as all of the wonderful participants at that conference.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for a wonderful answer. And that's a lot of thought there, a lot of food for thought to remember. In fact, the road to net zero has to go through mining. What a thing to say. Thank you, Sanjiva. Thanks for your time. And it was great interacting with you. And we really look forward to hosting you again on our platform. Pleasure meeting you. Thanks for your time.